Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We're presented by CLNS Media. Today on the show, good friend of the program, Dieter Kurtenbach, is back, and we're going to break down just a few of the random things that we've seen around the NBA thus far. We're going to talk about the Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons fit in Philadelphia. We're going to talk about Klay Thompson erupting for 52 points in, I believe, 27 minutes against the Chicago Bulls last night. And then we're going to talk about some of the chaos teams that we've seen around the NBA so far this season. Our sponsors today, DraftKings and Hims. But first, Dieter, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Now that Klay Thompson's on track, I feel like we can just fast forward the rest of the Warriors season. So hopefully it's really quite ridiculous. I did call, though, by the way, that he was going to set the NBA record for three-pointers made. I deserve some money or something from that.
Well, yeah, I saw Nate Silver say, like, the shock that, like, nobody has gone off for 19 threes in a game or something. And then 2 days later, Klay goes off for 15 threes in 27 minutes.
When you think about it, though, like, I have seen a lot of Steph Curry games. And legitimately, when he's doing what he does, it does seem as if he's making more, like, three-pointers. Same with Klay Thompson. Like, you would just guess there was 20. I don't know. It just seems like every time down the court he makes a three. The fact that 14 is the NBA record just, like, it is incongruent with the impact a guy makes on a game. I wouldn't be shocked if that record is broken by Curry at some point in the next, like, 6 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that my, like, bold prediction for that record is that it does not last throughout the entire basketball season.
What number do you think it gets to and then sort of plateaus at least for a bit?
It's so hard because the two guys most likely to do it are Steph and Klay. Mm-hmm. And the Warriors just keep blowing teams out. Like, that volcano of three-pointers is basically impossible to stick with whenever the Warriors do it because they're so defensively too. So, like, if you told me it's like 16 by the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised. But if a team where it gets out of the water is if a team sticks with them on any given night and, like, Klay has to play 35 minutes on one of these nights because, like, he's done this before. Like, give me the number you tweeted out about 50-point games.
Yeah, there's two guys in NBA history that have scored 50 or more points and played fewer than 30 minutes. So anyone who was at me like, Will Chamberlain scored 100, he had to have done that in 36 minutes. I'm talking he played less than 30 minutes. So pulled from the game, fewer than 30 minutes played, 50 or more points. The two guys are Klay Thompson and Klay Thompson. He scored 60 against the Pacers in 2016 in 29 minutes, which was a notably better game. I mean, my big thing is this isn't even Klay Thompson's third best game ever.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the two best games are, I think, the Pacers game and the Kings game. The Kings game, I think, will never be topped.
No, it's the greatest thing I've ever witnessed with my own eyes. Like, it was. I'm still delirious from watching it happen. And he started with 8 minutes in the third quarter. He did it in 8 minutes. It was just Nate McMillan, 38
or something,
37 points in one quarter in 8 minutes. Nate McMillan refused to call a timeout.
That's Indiana, not Sacramento.
Who was the coach of?
It was.
It wasn't Jaeger yet.
I don't think it was Jaeger. It wasn't Corbin, was it?
No, pretty sure.
I don't remember who it was. Doesn't really matter.
Didn't call a timeout. Immediately fireable offense, in my opinion. The best game that Klay's ever played, by the way, Game 6, 2016 Western Conference Finals. Yeah. That game literally changed the course of NBA history, in my opinion.
That's true.
And he was pretty damn good in Game 6 of last year's Western Conference Finals as well. Klay, also set the NBA record for most three-pointers attempted, and I think that says way more about that game than anything else.
It's so much about the Bulls.
It was. I joked, I guess, Saturday when I was watching the Warriors just watching something, and I go, the Bulls might give up like the NBA record of 173 points in a single game to the Warriors on Monday because they're so bad at defense. And for a good stretch of that game, that was like theoretically possible. Warriors scored
92 in the first half.
Which, by the way, in my wrap up of like, it's kind of hard to wrap up games like that in the written word because you're just like, you saw what the fuck happened. Like, we don't need to go over Klay Thompson. Like, here's some cool stats, I guess. I don't know. The record of 107 points scored in a single half will never be broken because the Warriors played next to flawless basketball against a team that is as bad defensively as I have seen in a really long time. And they came up 15 points shy of the single half scoring record. Like Paul Westphal, the god, just pushing it to other levels with that 1990 Denver Nuggets team.
Yes. So let's talk about Klay and its effects on the Bulls, because it is so hard to shoot 24 shots from three in a single NBA game. Like,
it wasn't even like, it didn't even seem difficult. I mean, honestly,
I will say by the, maybe midway through the third quarter, they were definitely trying to get him the record, and they ran everything for him.
Oh yeah, no, but they had a 45-point cushion. They could do whatever the hell they want. Right. The embarrassment is that the Bulls clearly could do nothing to stop it, even when every single play down the court was get Klay open for a three. And he wasn't shooting from 35 feet or anything. He was just right at the line. Yep. All they had to do was run one damn pick. And Justin Holiday, who is an average defender, got a little bit of length to him. Justin Holiday stood no chance.
And then they tried Zach on him, and Levine just is not good enough fighting through screens.
That was my favorite part. I sent a text out right as the game started, which was they put Klay on Levine, and Levine was clearly into it. And as soon as I saw that the matchup wasn't a cross matchup, it was actually Levine on Thompson, I texted somebody and just went, Thompson's going for 20 tonight. And they're 20 points? And I go, no, 23s. He's going to make a single game. And frankly, he would have if Steve Kerr didn't have mercy for my Chicago Bulls. I guess his Chicago Bulls too. Oh my God. Yeah.
It's funny because Stephen Noe over at The Athletic, we talked about this on the last podcast, I think. He even talked to Levine's dad, and Levine's dad was Zach just never learned how to fight through screens. So,
is that
he wants to, to, he has never been taught technique. And
I can't imagine it's that hard.
It's hard. You have to get skinny over the top. You have to be able to read where they're coming from. You have to be able to have anticipation in terms of, finding where you can get skinny over the top of the screen and where the body is coming from. You have to be aware of what play that the other team is running.
That's kind of a big one. Understand what the hell the other team is doing so you can try to stop it. Yeah.
There is a lot involved in defending screens and trying to get over the top screens and everything like that, or trying to go under screens even if that's the way you want to defend as a team. But oh my God, Zach,
it's got awful, and he's the worst of it. And listen, it's kind of fun to watch him score this year as someone who's watched.
He's been awesome on offense. Straight up, he has been unbelievable on offense.
But him and Jabari and Cameron Payne and Wendell Carter, and it's just can anyone? They're putting Holiday out there as please stop somebody. If you could stop all five, that'd be great because we're probably going to need it. It is abysmal. I made a joke last time I was on about which team is going to have the worst defense, and the Lakers are keeping up pace, but man, it is going to be hard to top this Bulls team.
The Lakers are trying, but this Bulls team is just a special mix of young bigs and ineffective and inattentive defenders.
Am I crazy though? Was the main takeaway from that game? Listen, I'm double biased in this one because I'm a lifelong Bulls fan and I cover the Warriors on a nightly basis. There's going to be some feelings that are going to be happening on both ends. But my main takeaway was yes, it was fairly incredible. Klay shot 58% from three. I've seen better. Not this season because he was shooting 14% from beyond the arc going into the game, but recently, it didn't really even register. The first half was awesome, and then the second half it was just a joke. They just knew that he was close and they kept funneling him the ball and no one was stopping it. It was some point shaving behavior, frankly, from the Chicago Bulls. And the main takeaway I had from that game wasn't so much Klay Thompson just set an NBA record. What an incredible shooter! It was holy shit. These Bulls are terrible. That was the main number one overarching thing that I took away from that game, and that's messed up.
Yeah, I think that I'm with you. I think that my takeaway was the Bulls are incredibly bad defensively. And look, I don't mean to take anything away from Klay Thompson.
He shot 58% though. That's not.
It's unbelievable to shoot 58% on 24 threes like that, but it's not a statistical anomaly. He took
5 dribbles on his made threes total. 5. And 3 of them were to sidestep a defender that was way over pursuing.
Yeah. Look, it's bad. Last night, Klay Thompson set a record for 3-point attempts in a single game in 27 minutes. The minutes part is the craziest thing. Like he played.
And he could have. And if he would have just made a couple, he would have done it in like 22. Like there was just the Warriors. It was like a globetrotter game. And I don't mean that in like a hyperbolic sense. It was the Warriors getting a rebound, Klay Thompson running to the 3-point line on the other side, nobody coming back to track, and then him shooting wide open threes. Yeah. Like what's that like Division II team that just runs and tries to? Yeah, that's pretty much what it looked like.
It was not great. It really just was not great at all. The Chicago Bulls pulling up the defensive numbers right now.
I think the franchise is over now. I think that's the official verdict.
Not over, but the fact that they are sitting in 29th defensively, I think that's going to be a running joke this year.
Are the Lakers truly number 30?
No, the Cavs are number 30. Oh. The Lakers are 23rd. Like they're not even in the same stratosphere as the Bulls. Like the Lakers just play at a crazy pace. So they give up a lot of points, but like on a defensive rating and on a per possession basis, the Bulls are 4.5 points clear of the Lakers in terms of poorest defensive ineptitude.
It's all really bad. It's no bueno. Going from a guy who can make a lot of threes to a guy.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny transition, isn't it?
Really can't. He's the antithesis of Klay Thompson. Have you come to the dark side? Have you come over to my side that this Markelle Fultz thing isn't working out?
I mean, like I'm still a believer in him as a long-term player, but what Philadelphia is going through right now is pretty difficult to judge, right? Because on one hand, this team has a window now that is like 5 years long, 6 years long. They have 2 more years of Ben Simmons under contract. They have 5 more years of Joel. They have 7 more years of Markelle, like 6 years of Dario. Like they have so many guys that are under contract long-term that the question for me is this team building for later this year? Or is this team building for 2.5 years down the road? And I think that the organization itself has to answer that question. And I'm sure that there have been discussions, especially now that Elton Brand has taken over and Brett Brown, I'm sure, has a say in that front office if he's not the lead voice. So that's where they need to kind of figure out what their overarching plan is. Because when I say this, like, I don't mean it rudely to Fultz, but like what the Hawks did to guard him last night was like kind of embarrassing. It was
totally. I mean, that's the main takeaway. There's no respect being shown, and I don't know what he can do to build it up. Like honestly,
like, they literally took Kent Bazemore, guarded him with Kent Bazemore because Bazemore's a really good help defender. They could have done 2 things. They could have just decided, all right, we're going to put Trae Young on Markelle Fultz. We don't think Fultz can really beat us that much, so we're going to put our worst defender on him and let him try and beat that guy, and maybe it'll work well for us. Or they could put Kent Bazemore on him and do what they did. And every time that Markelle Fultz stepped beyond 20 feet away from the basket, Bazemore sagged like 7 feet off and doubled on drivers like on the opposite side of the floor, or doubled on Joel Embiid anytime he got a post touch, because I think that this is kind of the most damning part of it. It seems like the 76ers even don't really believe in Fultz when he gets the ball. Like they're not even trying to pass to the wide open guy that is standing in the corner from 3, because they know that he's probably going to miss the shot.
Which is even more incredible because we see this kind of defense all the time in the playoffs. You just can't have non-shooters on the court in the playoffs. And clearly there have been guys who can't shoot the ball, who can get away with it. And one of them is on, Fultz's own team, Ben Simmons. He can't shoot. And so what do defenses do? They sag off as much as they can. But what does Simmons? He just drives past him anyway. Right. Markelle Fultz is a point guard.
Tried for so long, and he's just so powerful that he can kind of bowl through guys.
Totally. And that's what Giannis has done for years and years and years. And now he's developing a respectable outside shot, and it's game over. Like, Markelle Fultz is a guy who, in theory, should be able to penetrate and get to the hole right now. As a point guard who we saw him do it, but that's why he was part of the reason he was the number 1 overall pick. And the fact that it doesn't even seem like he has the confidence to do that is even more damning. Yes, he is not going to make the outside shot, and you're going to sag off of him Tony Allen style. But the fact that if you give him the ball, okay, he's either going to miss this open 3, and he can't really do anything to create a play with all the space that you're giving him. That's the real disconcerting part. There's a lot of guys who can't shoot. There's not a lot of guys who they look helpless out there.
it's complicated because I think that when Ben is out there, Fultz does look kind of helpless. And I'll give you some numbers to back that up. So Kyle Neubeck over at Philly Voice did a really great job breaking down this entire idea here. And he was looking up the same numbers that I was. And I'd be remiss if I didn't notice and note like exactly what Kyle did here, because Kyle broke it all out in a very nice chart form. So when Simmons and Fultz are on the floor, the 76ers have a negative 17.6 defensive or net rating. They're shooting 20% from three, and they're averaging 15.3 assists per 36 minutes. And you can realize why that's happening, right? Because teams are just straight up collapsing on the paint every single time. The Hawks essentially played a shell defense in the paint during the first 7 minutes of that game while Fultz was on the floor last night. I think that the 76ers scored 8 points during that time. When Fultz is on the floor without Ben, the team is plus 4.6. Averaging 22.5 assists per 36 minutes. And then even additionally beyond that, the more important part of this is how it's all affecting Simmons, given the fact that he's your all-NBA talent for sure. Plus 13.2 net rating for Ben Simmons when he's on the floor without Markelle Fultz. That says a lot to me. These two guys, it's pretty clear to me they can't play together right now. I don't know if they can play together in the future. Maybe they can. But right now, this team cannot have those two on the floor together and have the kind of success that they want to have going forward as an organization in the 2018-19 season.
It all comes back to the decision they made at the beginning of the year, which I found to be rather flabbergasting, though I guess justifiable in a certain sense. There was one line of logic that you could use to say this makes sense, which is when they decided to take away one of the best 5-man units, break it up, move J.J. Redick to the bench, and have Markelle Fultz start in place of him. That didn't make any sense to me because Markelle Fultz hadn't proven that he was worthy of a starting job yet. And while, yes, you need to get him and Simmons to learn how to play together because that is the crux of the Sixers' future, I would have preferred a slow play because now you're looking at the situation where I guess it's the worst case scenario where you tried to get these two to play together. It's not working. It's painfully not working. I mean, it's aggressively not working. And now you have to essentially demote a player that never deserved the promotion in the first place, if we're just being honest. Now you have to demote him to the bench, which he might be able to get his mojo back, but then you have to try this whole thing again. And you don't get a positive linear progression that can help a guy's confidence, which seems to be the crux of the issue here.
So I can give you numbers on the lineup stuff there as well.
Yeah.
So J.J. Redick with Ben Simmons, Dario Saric, Joel Embiid, and Robert Covington. This year, that is the lineup that still has played the most minutes of any group for the Philadelphia 76ers. It should come as zero surprise that group is a plus 17.5 per 100 possessions whenever that team is on the floor. They have a 72.2 assist rate. They move the ball all over the place, and they dominate defensively. When Fultz is with Simmons, Embiid, Saric, and Covington, the team has a negative 36.5 net rating, an assist rate of 53.6 because they can't get the same drive and kick game because they have less shooting on the floor and because teams just kind of collapse in on them. There are fewer angles to kick out to. It's just not working in any way. And this is, again, where it comes back to the 76ers have to decide what their priority is. What do you think of that? Should their priority right now be, hey, we need to get Markelle more reps. We need to get him more time with the starters because this guy is still an integral part of their future. Or do you just say, we can't play this guy? What does it say to our teammates that we can't play this guy?
They're in an beneficiation to where they have a lot of capital to play with and they play in a shitty conference. So they can get away with it. I think they made their bed when they chose at the beginning of the year to put him in the starting lineup. I don't think you can abandon it now, even though you should. Everything about it says you should. At some point, you're just going to have to keep banging your head against this brick wall and hoping that it breaks because I do not like the notion of moving him to the bench, trying to get his confidence up with the second unit where it's probably even more exacerbated the stuff that they're going to do to him defensively. And then trying to reintegrate him if he does succeed in that role. I don't like the notion of a demotion, pardon the rhyme. It's a mess. and I don't think this is confirmation bias either to where I stood before the season started. I did think it was a mistake, but once you go this route, you can't go the other way. I just think that there's too many negative side effects. You have to see it out. You at least have to get 15 games. You have to start legitimately torpedoing your chances of doing anything this season before you can abandon this, because as you said, it's so integral to this team, and I don't know when they're going to be able to sort of reestablish a chance or an opportunity to get him back into the starting lineup. If you send him down now, right, and then you give him 20, 30 games with the bench, and hopefully he becomes the ace of the second unit and he builds himself back up, now you're going into crunch time, second half of the season, and you're reintegrating Markelle Fultz into the starting lineup and hoping it works. Like, those games are really important at that juncture. I know they all count the same, but they feel bigger in those moments, and teams are going to be more keyed in, and they're going to try, they're going to be a bit more aggressive on the defensive end. They're going to come up with probably better game plans, but it's incredible early in the season that it's so obvious to opposing teams that they can come up with an entire game plan to screw this guy up and that he can't do anything about it.
So here's my pitch in terms of what I think. Yeah. Dario Saric has started poorly as well. Dario is always a guy that has had a pretty tenuous fit with Ben Simmons on the floor, I think.
Yeah.
When he was shooting it really, really well last year, it all worked out. And, I'm actually a huge fan of what Dario brings to the table. He's really a capable passer. He can handle the ball, just an incredibly skilled offensive player. Maybe the move is you switch Redick for Saric in the starting lineup. So you start Fultz, Redick, Simmons, Covington, and Embiid. You attach Redick to Markelle Fultz's hip, essentially, and make it so that, with JJ, the way he runs off of screens constantly, with the way that he can create gravity for defenders where they have to shoot out on him immediately, it's going to create either defensive breakdowns from teams that are not used to running these very strange defensive schemes that they're running to try and shut down Markelle Fultz, or B, it's going to create driving lanes for Markelle Fultz to potentially attack off the dribble.
At least more, theoretically.
Yeah, like I would give that a try more than anything. Make it clear, Dario, like, hey, this is why we're doing this. We really want Markelle to work. We want this to grow and prosper together. This is not necessarily because you have started the season poorly. We want you to be able to run our second unit because we think you're capable of that. Like, I would just kind of try and phrase it that way. And, you're still going to close games. Like, Markelle isn't closing for us in close games. You are. But, like, we want to try something different. And we think it's important that we continue to build up this guy's confidence.
I guess it is baffling. I mean, at what point does this organization lose credibility with its players?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a question for sure. But, like, it's all about communication. Like, I think if you communicate something like that properly, it's fine. Like, you can get away with it.
I think that the issue isn't the messaging; it's the message. Like, how do you continue to say, listen, we are going to shoehorn this guy in, and while you can see on a daily basis that it is not working. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It seems as if the team is still around him. I don't know how much longer this can go on.
I think they like him. Like, this is a big part of it too. Like, Markelle Fultz is like a really good kid. Like, people like
no doubt.
Him. Like, he has the confidence of the players because, well, I don't know if they have the confidence on the floor, but they genuinely want him to succeed. And that's what the biggest part of this is. So I think that there is something to that. And I do think that they run that risk, but I don't think we're there yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 4-3 in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's 7 games in. You don't want, but
the other thing about all of this is too. Again, like you said, they're 4-3. Like this isn't that big of a deal. It is problematic, and it is something that is annoying because they're not as good as what they were last year.
But I was expecting that. I didn't necessarily tie it to this, but I felt like the Sixers probably overachieved last year. You think about that run they had.
Maybe.
Season, and so they were always due for some regression down. But this seems toxic, or it seems like it's potentially toxic, and you just can't be so idealistic at the sake of, listen, at the sake of nothing right now, they're 4-3. It doesn't really matter. We're not talking about seedings or anything like that. But if you continue to do this, if we're 30, 40, 50 games into the season and it's still not working, at what point do the players go, we're taking our season for Markelle Fultz? Like, we have a chance to win a championship. This guy isn't going to get it done. And how long will ownership hold on to its pride? How long will management hold on to its pride? Like, Elton Brand is not in an enviable situation here, because this is not his guy per se, and he has to essentially make a decision on him if this continues that will define his career for a long time. And
I think we go 25 games.
Listen, I'm willing to take it to Christmas because the conference is really loose. But the fact that it seems worse than even we could have imagined is really bad.
And the weird thing is that it's not all Markelle necessarily either, because
right?
Like I said, like, he's been fine when he's not played on the floor with Simmons. It's just the lack of shooting that those two combined together bring is problematic. So like, part of me is just like, hey, it's not that this guy can't be effective. He's shown some flashes of being effective. He's not been like this abject disaster of a basketball player so far. He's been not great. He's been a young player that has shown flashes that has probably been more negative than positive. Mm-hmm. But it's not like there's nothing there to grow on either.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We're not dealing with Anthony Bennett territory here. But this is the peculiarity of it all. I mean, why is Ben Simmons the point guard on this team? He wasn't supposed to be the point guard of this team. It was supposed to be Fultz as the point guard and Simmons off the ball.
Like, you have to have Ben be the lead guy because he's just too good.
Then why the hell do you draft Markelle Fultz?
Because at the time, Markelle could shoot and you could play him off the ball.
Yeah, but so can, Jason Tatum.
Yeah, but...
And let's not forget,
the thing, like,
it wasn't their number one overall pick. They traded up to get Markelle Fultz.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not going to look great. No one's going to deny that this trade is not going to look great. It's trying to figure out how to make good on a sunk cost, right?
But there's a whole fallacy about that, my friend.
Yeah. Like, literally, the sunk cost fallacy is a thing. Like, we need to not...
We're living in it right now, the Philadelphia 76ers.
But it's not like a completely sunk cost. It's just like 50% of the asset is sunk. We need to live with what we have. You know what I mean?
Well, they need to salvage whatever it is he is. Right. I mean, that's the thing. We have no idea. Listen, Markelle Fultz can just come out of this. Like,
what if he can shoot? Like, he was a fine shooter in high school. He shot 40% from three in college and was like in the 90th percentile as a shooter off the dribble. Washington.
The only reason this is exactly the only reason that this is weird is because it's weird. Like, it's not one of those situations where you're like, oh, well, he could never shoot, and like they're trying to teach him. Like, no, he could shoot, as you just said, and he could dribble, and he played with confidence, and he was a killer out there. He was awesome at Washington, and there was every reason to think, even as the number one overall pick, that he could be the dude. Now, I didn't necessarily like him in theory as a two guard. I liked him as a combo who probably had the ball in his hands more often than not, with Simmons playing off the ball. And that fit really made much sense to me, if we're honest, especially now that we've seen what Simmons is and that he needs to be a ball dominant guard, I guess, wing, whatever the hell he is anymore. But like, yeah, but it could just, the only reason that this is being force fed, right? And that this is being discussed in the way that it is, and that we are not fully at sunk cost fallacy yet, is because there is in the back of everyone's mind this thought that it could just stop tomorrow. It's the yips. I mean, a lot of this is just the yips.
Yeah, I think that's right. Do you know where Markelle Fultz will be valuable, though, if he gets to the stage where he can start shooting basketballs again? It'll be at DraftKings. Basketball season is finally back, and you know what that means. It's time to put your basketball knowledge to the test with one-day fantasy basketball at DraftKings. No matter what your skill level is, there is a contest waiting for you. You guys know that I love DraftKings. We're going to be doing a big contest over at CLNS coming up here this week, and you guys should all join DraftKings so that you can participate in it. Drafting your team is super simple. You just take 8 players and say under the $50,000 salary cap. You earn points whenever players score, assist, block, and rebound the basketball. And the best part is that it's a one-day commitment. You don't have to be stuck with this team the entire year. So if you download the app and head over to DraftKings.com, use my code THEORY to support the show and play for free with your first deposit. Remember, there will be $400 million in total prizes up for grabs throughout the season. That code is THEORY, THEORY, to play for free with your first deposit only at DraftKings. There's a minimum $5 deposit required and eligibility restrictions do apply. Go see DraftKings.com for details. Our second sponsor today is Hims. You know, Markelle Fultz does have great hair, but 66% of men lose their hair by the age of 35. I hope he's not one of them because that hair is just terrific. But the thing is that when you start to notice hair loss, it's too late. If that hairline is slowly starting to move backward, you need to take care of it now so that whenever you're 35, whenever you're like me and 28 years old and you start losing your hair, that it doesn't keep going backward. So I've got a solution for you. It's forhims.com. Hims connects you with real doctors and medical grade solutions to treat hair loss. These are well-known generic equivalents to name brand prescriptions to help you keep your hair. These aren't snake oil pills, no gas station counter supplements. There's no waiting room. There's no awkward in-person doctor visits. You just save hours by going to forhims.com. It's so easy. You just answer a few quick questions. A doctor will review it and they will prescribe to you. Order now, and my listeners are going to get a trial month of Hims for just $5 while supplies last. See the website for full details. This would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy. Go to forhims.com/game theory. That's forhims.com/game theory. GAMETHEORY. Forhims.com/game theory. So, Dieter, let's take people behind the veil of the way that our podcast works. So, on Tuesdays, Dieter and I typically record, and we're going to have to stop that at some point next week because I'm going to the Champions Classic and won't have time. We'll schedule that at a different point. But what typically happens now on Tuesdays is we record a video portion of the podcast so that it can go up at CLNS and you can see us talking about, for instance, this week, Markelle Fultz and potentially Klay Thompson and things like that. And we do video segments and it's great. Advertisers love it. Everyone thinks it's a fantastic idea. Except for the people that have to look at our faces. But
yeah, exactly.
And like me for general self-confidence issues.
Oh man, it's every Tuesday night's really rough. You pile of self-loathing.
Oh yeah. So yesterday we did that, and we got half of it uploaded, and then the other half didn't upload. So
yeah, I think that was for the best.
Well, it's not, because the funny thing is that the second half of our podcast today was supposed to be chaos teams, right? And Dieter and I went in depth on the teams that we're most worried about right now, right? You know, we talked about how the Cleveland Cavaliers at that stage were 0-6.
They're not good.
And they're not bad. Good, but we're not
and
like...
they got a coach thing happening.
Right, like the fact that Larry Drew is the voice and not the coach seems to be an issue.
The fact that that's a title that exists gives you every indication ever that things aren't going great.
And the Suns look like a total mess, and the Thunder were just absolutely like a train wreck through the first 5 games, and then they turned it around a little bit last night. Weren't, but the question was basically, what situation are we most concerned about, right? And our 2 answers were the Wizards and the Rockets. And what do the Wizards and Rockets do? They go out, and I mean, you see Bradley Beal talking on the sideline to Marc Gasol, like talking about like how this looks to be a mess according to John Roser. And then the Houston Rockets last night go out and lose, and Mike D'Antoni just is on the dais totally without knowledge of what he can do now going forward. So
when do the Rockets play the Suns? Because that might be the worst basketball game of the year.
It's bad. Like
it's not until February. You got to be kidding me.
These are bad situations right now. So it's funny that we did this. You know, the Rockets play Brooklyn next, and then they play Chicago. I think Chicago might be the one where the Rockets turn it around because, good God, it is for everyone else. And then the Wizards play Oklahoma City next, which is a stunningly like useful game now. And then they play the Knicks, and then they play Dallas. Like, and Dallas's defense is so bad that you might be able to finally figure some things out. But
maybe I
wanted to, talk this over now that we have yet another data point. We're going to continue to record this podcast and essentially re-record what we said yesterday about why we're so worried about these teams. And, you know, who do you want to start with now? I've introduced it. So like, where do you want to go with this?
I could go in either direction with great glee. First off, breaking news. Thank goodness we had that recording mishap because Dwight Howard's officially going to make his debut on Friday, according to Shams.
Great.
So that Wizards-Thunder game, even more intriguing. Clear your schedule on Friday. I do want to start with the Houston Rockets because I watched a great deal of that garbage basketball game that they played last night against the Portland Trail Blazers, and this is a broken team. Like, this team looks as if every minute they're playing is garbage time. Their defense is deplorable, and there's not really an excuse for the level of bad that they're exhibiting on that end of the court, if we're just being totally honest. The offense is stagnant. It has not been able to recreate the ball movement. It kind of looks like an old Clippers offense. Now, obviously, James Harden's injured with that hamstring injury, but when you have Chris Paul on the court, in theory, you should be able to move the ball a little bit. You should be able to do some things on the offensive end. This team still has talent. They still have a high pick-and-roll game, you would think, with Clint Capella and Chris Paul and some of the guys around him. I mean, it's not as if they don't have Eric Gordon and they don't have PJ Tucker. They don't have good players.
But by the way, the craziest thing about last night was, so like that game was basically done by the time like the midpoint of the fourth quarter.
Oh, it was over before that. It was over at halftime, man. It was incredible to watch.
I don't know if it was over at halftime, but like it was over in the second half, and Chris Paul played 36 minutes. Like Mike D'Antoni was just like, fuck this. Like we need to figure out a way to springboard this group. And he played Chris Paul like basically until the end.
Well, the benefit of that is that the backup point guard is Jesus, what's his name? Michael Carter-Williams. And we were talking yesterday before the podcast self-imploded from too many hot takes.
That's how it self-imploded, yeah.
Yeah, that they should probably just cut his ass. And
really
did he play last night? I don't recall him being on the court when I was watching. So perhaps Mike D'Antoni was able to sneak in and not let that information get out before they played the Blazers.
He played 15 minutes last night.
Well, that would have been a good game for him to play a lot of minutes in theory. But nevertheless, I stand by that point. I know you're with me on that one, that he is providing nothing on either end. Melo is being Melo. I don't know what else anyone could have expected from him. It's just fascinating to watch how bad they are on defense and how quickly things have devolved. And ultimately, this is a better team than that, right? Like James Harden's not in there, and they look this bad. The levels are not there. Trevor Ariza and Luke Bahamute, they go elsewhere, and the level shouldn't be falling the way that they have fallen. And perhaps this is just bad luck on top of stuff, but the way I watched them, this looks like a lifeless team. This looks like a soulless team. And I'm going to bring back the hot take I had yesterday, Sam. I think that this team psychologically is ruined from last year's Western Conference Finals. I think when you spend an entire season hell-bent on beating the Warriors, and you drill it every single day, sometimes at the detriment of your own success on a day-to-day basis. You drill in a defensive system created specifically to beat the Warriors. You morph into an offense created specifically to beat the Warriors. And you do that every day for 82 games for an entire playoffs. You get there, you get within a half of making the NBA Finals in Game 6. You have 8 quarters of basketball to make the NBA Finals, and you choke it away in Game 6, and you choke it away in Game 7. That has a psychological effect on the actual team there, that they had their chance and they missed it, and they know that it's going to be an almost impossible hill to climb this year, and they're not interested in even trying.
And you know what the funny thing is, though? Like, I kind of made fun of you for that yesterday, because, like, people kind of know that, like,
it's a hot take, don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Like, I hate whenever people, like, try and, like, throw in, like, the psychological stuff. Whenever
I get it.
We're not on the inside, you know what I mean? Like if it's
totally.
if it's a beat reporter, I'm like, okay, like I get that.
If it's a beat reporter, though, I mean that's levels on levels on levels. Like it's so obvious to everybody by the time that stuff comes out. You know,
exactly.
Like you has to be leaning that way because a beat reporter doesn't go out on limbs like that because it's a limb and it's a good way to get your ass kicked and all that stuff. But like I can't shake that notion from my head. I thought it after Game 7. As I was saying yesterday, I was watching Game 7, Game 6, and Game 7 at like 2:00 in the morning 2 nights ago because I couldn't sleep, and I'm like, it was just so interesting. You could just see the life get sucked out of them in that moment. And I haven't seen it come back yet early this season. They don't seem invigorated at all. And now everything that's going poorly seems to be compounded. And that is, I would argue, the mindset of a defeated team. And I just don't know how Mike D'Antoni gets it back. I have no earthly concept. I think it might be beyond anyone's capability.
Well, you know who agrees with your take right now?
Who?
Mike D'Antoni. He said, we've lost our swagger after the game last night. Right now we're playing like crap. We're just not playing well. You know, I don't have a whole lot of answers for you. We'll look and we'll fight it. So, like, he doesn't really have the answer right now either. And the numbers here are kind of staggering in a lot of ways. Like, they have the worst half-court defense in the NBA, and they pair that with the worst transition offense in the NBA.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they have Chris Paul and they have James Harden and they have Clint Capella who can run the floor. Like, they have these weapons that should be pretty good in transition on offense. And they're getting out on the break. Like, that's not an issue. Like, you know, frequency matters just as much as, you know, points per possession out on the break, because you expect that to revert to a certain level at some point. And the fact that they're scoring 0.89 points per possession in transition,
that's horrific.
That's horrific, but it's not going to hold. Like, just, it's not.
I don't know, man. I mean, listen.
I'm telling you, it's not. Like,
no, I know.
No
but,
way.
like, what's the second worst team in that regard?
Let's see.
Do you have that up?
I can pull that up. It's the New Orleans Pelicans at 0.92. The average is right around 1.1.
Yeah. I mean, you should be able to get more than a point per possession in transition. The Pelicans won't hold either, in my opinion. Mind you, they play the entire game in transition, so who knows? This is also, let's establish a team that on the offensive end of the court, kind of had two different styles last year. I mean, two radically different styles, where you think about what they were playing late playoffs, late in the regular season, the ISO heavy game, the one pick and, you know, attack the mismatch on the perimeter, Chris Paul and James Harden just switching off as the main dude. That stuff was slow. I mean, their pace got down to glacier levels. Beginning of the season, they were playing pretty fast. And that is, in some ways, what, you know, obviously the Rockets wanted to do, but it wasn't the pragmatic way to go about things when you're facing the Warriors. And they seem stuck between stations in that regard as well, because you can tell, like, sometimes they want to run, but then other times they want to go back to this ISO heavy stuff. It's very peculiar, and it's kind of difficult to watch. The half-court defense in particular is astounding. I mean, it takes one pick, one cut to completely implode in a half-court defense. That's not normal. There's something incredibly rotten about everything that's going on there right now.
So, yeah, I agree with you. What I would say also is, before last night, I was not as worried as you were necessarily about this.
Well,
group.
I watched that first game against the Pelicans, and I just listen. It's the first. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
that's where I'm at. Like, it's been like 5 or 6 games, you know, and I was just like, you know, this'll figure itself out. Like, they're a veteran team. They're gonna play themselves into shape. They're gonna like figure out the defensive woes, and they're gonna. Are
they out of shape? I mean, is that an issue for this team? It doesn't look like they're out of shape to me.
Yeah, but just like playing themselves into game shape, you know, like there's a difference for veterans, I think, in terms of getting themselves up to play, especially ones that have played on that level. It's such a, high place against the Warriors last year. D'Antoni's quotes last night scare me because, like, he doesn't seem like he has an idea of what to do right now. And that's a significant problem. If you're a Rockets fan, I would be a little bit worried, if only because your coach is worried. And that is abnormal. Like, Mike D'Antoni is like never worried about things. Yeah. Like, he's like just calm and relaxed, and like that's his vibe. That's how he is. But like look, I'm not saying that he's not that right now, but he's very clearly stressed and doesn't really know what to do here.
I mean, you're right. They get the Nets and the Bulls coming up here. And if you can't get right against those teams, then there is every reason to think that there are. I mean, I think right now, before what happens, I actually don't want those games. They're going to win those games, or they'll at least win against the Bulls because the Bulls are horrific. But
I think so too.
Those are outliers in some regards. Like, I don't want us to forget what we're thinking right now when they're playing teams that are good and they're getting their asses kicked. I mean, they lose to the Clippers, the Jazz, the Clippers, the Blazers. Like, those are teams that are in the hunt in the Western Conference. Those are theoretically worthy adversaries. And the Nets, even though I love watching the Nets, like, they're not there. The Bulls are certainly not that team. So don't allow the next 2 games necessarily to lift up your perception of this team, because they are as low as they can get right now. Pay more attention to the games against the Pacers, the Thunder, the Spurs, the Pacers again. A lot of weird two teams in 2 cities, or 2 games in 2 cities thing.
But like here's like the bizarre thing that happened last night too.
The first half of November is going to be everything for this team, because if they can't beat, it ends with the Warriors. They get the Nuggets, they get the Spurs, they get the Pacers, they get the Thunder. If they get through that game with the Warriors and they don't have a winning record, if they don't look right.
Oh, they're probably not going to have a winning record after that, I don't think.
I'm saying a winning record just against those 6 teams.
Okay.
Like in those 6 games.
Go
and if they don't look
3,
right,
something like that.
Something like that. If they don't look right, if they don't look competitive, if they don't have that life that is completely missing from them right now, if that game against the Bulls and that game against the Nets doesn't help them find their swagger, there's every reason to start fading this team really hard. Extremely hard, like not make the playoffs hard. But they have to get through those games before I'm willing to go that far. But right now, the fact that we're even having this conversation is cause for extreme concern.
Yeah, and like here's the thing too. Last night it wasn't the defense. Like
it was a little bit. I mean, the offense was horrific, but the defense was really bad too. They were horrific on both ends of the court.
I'll say this: they held Portland to like 19 first quarter points. They had a defensive rating of 106. Like that's a winnable game defensively. Like if they do that in a game defensively, this team with their offensive talent should win. But what
I saw was a Portland team that didn't take advantage. When Portland finally figured out that they could just take anything they wanted, and all they had to do was back cut one time, it was over. It was over. And like sometimes there's a feel out process. I don't put too much credence in. Second and third quarters tell me everything, right? Fourth quarters could tell you a lot. First quarters, yeah, they're important, don't get me wrong, but like of the 4 quarters of a basketball game, those are the ones I put the least amount of stock in.
Yeah, and you're right. Like I kind of forgot, I guess, that this was a 28-point lead in the third quarter at one point. I thought it got a little bit closer than that in the fourth, but
it was total garbage time by the middle of the third. I mean, and it was to the point where, listen, I understand Houston has a lot of traffic and stuff. It's always been an interesting look for the crowd at that arena. It gets pretty damn rowdy during good games, but like halftime, I would say at least half of the lower bowl didn't come back.
Yeah. I mean,
that tells you a lot.
There's cause for concern. Let's move to Washington.
I mean, which of these 2 teams, I think here's the better question. Which of these 2 teams do you want to fade harder right now? It has to be Washington.
Oh, Washington. Right? I am way more worried about Washington because that team looks like a mess internally as well. Like, totally. Bradley Beal, like I said at the top here, was like talking to like Marc Gasol and Garrett Temple. Like Garrett Temple looked like he had to come over and like console Bradley Beal.
Former Wizard Garrett Temple.
Right, like their team, like their former teammates, like they know each other well. That was bad.
I said yesterday, I'll lead it off now. If you are an NBA team looking for upgrades, you need to be calling the Washington Wizards today, tomorrow, in the next couple of weeks to try to get Bradley Beal, because John Wall's contract is untradeable. Bradley Beal is an exceptional basketball player who would make any team he's on better. And while you're at it, take a look at Otto Porter as well. The good news for the Wizards is that John Wall is owed $207 million between now and 2023.
So yeah, he has a 15. The problem there too is John Wall has a 15% trade kicker as well. So he's scheduled to make it's like 46 or something. And
it could get above 50. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's scheduled to make 46 in 2022-23 when he is, I want to say it's 32 years old. So if he gets traded, that number moves up to 53 million. 53 million for John Wall, who I will say this, like, I hated the way he ran the team last night. He turned it over 9 times. He shot it well for the first time this season. That's a place of growth.
Yeah. This is going to sound extremely dramatic, but I don't know of any other way to put it. Like, he's the problem.
I think he is too. Like, I saw Nate Jones, who, Jones on the NBA. He works for Goodwin Sports, if I remember correctly, or did at one point. I don't know Nate like that.
He's a person.
Yeah. But like a very, prominent person online.
He has people who follow him on Twitter.
Yeah. He mentioned, he threw it into a group chat. Would the Timberwolves entertain John Wall for Jimmy Butler?
I mean,
I know, It broke my brain. It broke my brain thinking about it. I don't think I would do that if I was the Timberwolves.
Well, what blows my mind is we are in extreme speculatory trade.
Oh yeah.
Situations here, like John Wall should be sent to the Suns, or John Wall should go to the Miami Heat. Like, I don't think there's a smart NBA team, and now mind you, there are 30 NBA franchises, and very few of them I would categorize as smart. There's no smart NBA team that I would take on John Wall. Like, this guy's the problem, and his body language is horrific. I mean, it's laughable. I can't take him seriously. I have never been a Wall guy. I understand the talent, honestly.
And starting, here's the other problem.
I don't think it's confirmation bias on my end. Like, I really don't.
Starting the season like this, like right after you have the photo of yourself at the U.S. Select Camp,
he still kind of looks like that. There was a photo of him on the bench yesterday, and I'm like, oh, he is not there.
Yeah, like this was a dude who, when he was like 25, even. Was rail thin. Like, he was very skinny. He was like, he bulked up and gotten muscular, but like, he was thin in many ways. Like, he doesn't look thin anymore. And when your game is so predicated on speed and quickness and getting out and, beating defense down the floor and making quick decisions, it's a tough adjustment, I think, in many ways. Like, this is a guy that I don't really see aging that well right now.
No, and particularly not with the guy who has had knee surgeries and knee injuries and stuff like that. You know what doesn't help with your knees? Weight and running really fast.
Yeah, and here's the other issue too. We talked about this yesterday. Washington's transition defense this year has been just absolutely a joke. Like,
well, yeah, I saw it firsthand. I mean, it wasn't even defense; it was Globetrotter-esque.
Yeah, and I think that's where guys like Bradley Beal and even Austin Rivers has come out and said, like, we need to take pride. We need to like really like focus in on that end and start taking care of business. But like, they've played 7 games so far, which is about average. Like, there are a couple of teams that have played 6. A few teams have played 8, but they've given up the second most points in transition on defense of any team in the NBA. And again, like, to me, that's a better way to value transition defense than efficiency, because it tells you how often they're giving up transition opportunities, which is the best way to disallow points, is to stop those transition opportunities from happening at all. And the fact that they have given up the second most transition points in the NBA, and I believe that it is the most per game. If it's not the most per game, it's the second most per game as well. Yeah, it's the second most per game. I'm sorry, but it's like 0.6 in front of the Phoenix Suns. Like, this is not a great situation. This is a bad situation that seems to be just kind of devolving.
It's I can't imagine a circumstance in which it gets better.
I mean, like, look, it's going to get better. Like, they're not going to,
like, just naturally better.
They're not going to win, what, 15% of their games.
But are they going to win 30? Yeah, they'll win 30. Are they going to get to 41 wins?
Right now, I would say no.
Yeah, right now I would fade that pretty hard as well. I'm looking at photos of John Wall from this year. I know. I would also like to say that one of my bold predictions, I'm going to take a victory lap. I know Woj never takes victory laps, but like, Woj has more classes than taking a victory lap. I said that the Wizards would implode and that Dwight Howard wouldn't be the problem. You're welcome, America. I'm looking at photos now of John Wall from this season. This is the best example of the frog in the boiling pot of water analogy. Have you ever heard that one?
No.
So if you put a frog in a pot of water...
Is this like a German thing?
I don't know. If you put a frog in a pot of water that is room temperature, he'll, of course, stay in the water, right? If you turn on the stove underneath that pot of water, the frog will not leave the pot of water as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and eventually he will just be boiled to death because it just happens around him. He doesn't take notice of the change in temperature. That is kind of what's happening with John Wall's weight right now. I'm looking at a photo of him like 3 years ago and a photo of him just like a couple of games ago. It's crazy. I didn't realize how bad it was. Honestly, this is bonkers. So
I just kind of assumed he'd play himself into shape, and he hasn't done that yet.
We've got about 20 pounds to go there. Listen, I can't talk shit on anybody about losing weight, but like, God damn, this is rough. And honestly, like, this would be a pretty good reason to be like, I'm not taking you seriously, man. You're way out of shape compared to where you were. Anyone who's been with him long enough might, take notice of the fact that this guy isn't exactly, going hard in the weight room. Or maybe he is and it's just not working. Maybe there's something terrible happening. I don't know. But it's
like, people have fast metabolisms. Like that's not like a...
Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing. I mean, he's older now, right? Like, you can't be eating Skittles at lunch. I don't know. I've always found it fascinating how Marshawn Lynch eats so many Skittles, because like last week I did Carb Week 2018, where I just ate carbs for the first time in like weeks, and I felt like I put on about 50 pounds. I didn't, but I felt like it. And I had a lot of Skittles because obviously it's like candy sales and stuff. And it's like, how does anyone do this? It's the most unfulfilling calorie known to man. I mean, it tastes great, but like it does nothing for you. And it just makes you feel sad all the time. I don't understand how Marshawn Lynch does it. That's a metabolism, but clearly John Wall and I are on the same spectrum when it comes to that.
I don't know. I don't know. I just know that right now they look like crap. They're playing terribly.
But they're not firing Scotty Brooks though, because they have reinforcements coming, and he starts on Friday. Dwight Howard, ladies and gentlemen.
I sent friend of the program Danny LaRue a message on, I think it was Sunday or Saturday.
Yeah.
And was like, over under 13 and a half days until Scott Brooks gets fired. I hope it's less, but it's been pretty bad so far. Like, it's been really bad.
Let's take into account ownership as well. Like, they have no impetus to really try that hard. They just won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the Wizards, they've probably already seen their peak. And that's the worst part about this, right? Okay, so let's extrapolate it out.
It's a bummer because they have, theoretically, like, this year should be this group's peak. Like, you have John Wall,
Absolutely.
28 years old. You have Bradley Beal, like, in his 6th season. You have Otto Porter in year 6 or something like that, whatever he's in. Like, this in next year should be, like, the 2 years where this team figured it all out. And because of mismanagement, because of...
Yeah, Mahimi.
Well, yeah, mismanagement and trading draft picks and, everything that, poorly run franchises do. They just aren't going to get that chance, it seems like.
There's also a bit of like karma involved in this. Like, the Wizards have talked so much shit for doing nothing for years now, and it almost feels like this is proper recompense in a certain way. Like, they were never that good. And listen, this is a team that generally, outside of Beal and Porter, I don't really like any of the players that are on this team. I've always been a John Wall skeptic. I don't like Kelly Oubre. Like, I just don't like him. I don't think his game is smart enough to sustain. I was never a Gortat guy. It looks like they miss him now, though, which is crazy.
They really do. They really miss Marcin Gortat, which is, again, I agree with you. I did not expect that to necessarily be a thing. Maybe
legitimately, maybe Dwight will help, because now they can at least recreate some of what Gortat gives them.
Well, like, maybe we should have realized that, because right now, in terms of like pick and roll offense, like Marcin Gortat is widely known around the NBA as one of the best screen setters.
World-class screen setter.
Yeah, and his chemistry with John Wall was obviously off the charts. Incredible from playing together for 4 or 5 years. And right now this team is 20th in pick and roll derived offense. So,
but because there's no fear with Mahimi. I mean, Gortat could at least knock down a 15-footer every now and again, and he was not a great rim runner or anything, but you had to take him seriously.
Here's what Gortat did do really well. He was really good at using screens to get free from defensive rebounders and finding a lane to go grab offensive rebounds.
Totally. That is 1,000% correct. And like Mahimi, you watch him, you look at Mahimi, and you're like, wow, that guy could probably do it. But he is not with everybody else. I mean, he's just not an impact player in any way, shape, or form. I've always also had questions about how Beal and Wall fit together. I would like Beal to handle the ball more often, if I'm being totally honest. Him just kind of standing in the corner doesn't do it for me.
And they used to do that offense where, like, it was, they'd set up Bradley Beal in the in the mid range at like 22 feet instead of doing it 26 feet from the basket. And when Scott Brooks took over, that changed a little bit. Like, that wasn't nearly as prevalent within their offense. But we are hitting the stage now where, I mean, it's been last year and like the start of this year now where Bradley Beal has been their best player. Like,
no question.
It's not.
No question.
It hasn't been John Wall for the last, year and 7 games here. And
even in the good games Wall plays, he's like a net zero player. He just gives up as much as he gets, and he's not getting as much as he used to get. So you can do the math.
Yeah, like you look at what their on-off ratings are right now. Otto Porter is a minus 3.7. Nobody's positive, by the way. I should say that.
Yeah, of course.
Bradley Beal and John Wall, -6, -6 or -6.6, -6.8. Let's take a look at last year on this as well. You look at, again, Otto Porter was the best performer. John Wall was a plus 4.1 last year whenever they were only a plus 0.5 net rating team, because that offensive unit had such synergy together, and taking away, even like taking away Markieff Morris at times, taking away Marcin Gortat. They started Jeff Green and Jan Mahinmi last night.
Yeah.
Like maybe we shouldn't. Maybe that's just the thing. Like maybe we should have realized it coming into the year that when you start Jan Mahinmi and Jeff Green in a game, and like God love Jeff Green because he's every single person in the NBA loves Jeff Green, but like it's just
he's not a very good basketball player.
He flashes though. Like he's the perfect guy to bring off the bench because he's the
perfect wizard. Flashes but doesn't actually do it on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah, like Jeff Green is good to bring off the bench because when he has it. And when he has it, he's a very valuable player. But when he doesn't have it, you can go to someone else who's probably a little bit better. On the whole. The problem is like this team is going, they need Jeff Green on a night in, night out basis.
I mean, that's what we were saying last year during the NBA Finals. Like, the Cavs really need Jeff Green to step up on a night in, night out basis. How'd that work out?
Yeah.
I don't know what's the exit strategy here. Let's say that this extends. Like, let's say we get to the trade deadline and they're not even in a playoff spot. I mean, you have to make moves. Like you absolutely have to. No one's touching this Wall contract if they're smart.
Probably not, but I mean, I'm not.
Is there anybody out there that you honestly think would do it? I guess who would you indict right now? Would Phoenix be dumb enough to do this?
Phoenix could consider it. Because Phoenix would be easy because they could just like use the like Tyson Chandler contract to match it mostly, and like you could do like Tyson Chandler, T.J. Warren, and like something for John Wall and something.
I don't know if they can move it. I think that Phoenix is probably the most likely spot just because of desperation. But like, if Bradley Beal's available, I know the Los Angeles Lakers have some. I don't think he would be either. But I think that all I could think about watching Bradley Beal last night is I bet LeBron could use a guy like Bradley Beal.
Yeah. I mean, that's not unfair. In terms of teams, like realistically, like the Spurs aren't going to do it, even though they need a point guard.
No, they're too smart for that.
Could Orlando?
Orlando very much could. Though Steve Clifford, John Wall doesn't sound like a great combo.
It doesn't. In their front office, I think, like, since the transition to Jeff Weltman and John Hammond, I think it's actually a smart front office.
I agree. I think that they would be wise to just... It's not as if there's an urgency there, right? Like, that's kind of the kicker.
I don't think so, no. Unless they wanted to get a point guard to develop their bigs. Like, that could maybe be the impetus.
Here's the other thing, too. I mean, the Suns can't do anything. They don't have... I mean, have they finalized their front office yet?
Yeah, James Jones is their GM.
James Jones. Jesus.
I don't think they've, like, filled every... like spot in it so far. But
I knew James was the guy, but I wasn't sure if it was still an interim thing or not. But like, I don't like anything about what's going on here. And Scotty Brooks might be looking.
Here's a wild one.
Yeah,
the Knicks.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Could the Knicks do like Tim Hardaway Jr. and
he's their best player? Don't
John
give up
Wall
Tim Hardaway.
Like John Wall for TJ or for Tim Hardaway Jr. You would understand why the Knicks think this is an okay move, but I probably wouldn't do it. I would rather use my cap space another way.
Let's have a legitimate. Oh, absolutely. Now here's the thing: it will probably drag out. You probably have to do a full season of this nonsense. Yeah. Because it's not as if this contract extension can disappear in any way.
Right,
so it's happening.
And that's
Everyone
how
knows.
The Knicks would get involved, is because
they lose out on Durant and they have to do something desperate.
Right, because they won't mess with their cap space potential until the offseason.
Absolutely
They're going to keep it.
Brooklyn wouldn't do it. They're too smart.
Yeah, I think that's right.
The Bulls are not smart, but they're also not aggressive, so I don't think they would do it.
Yeah, I don't think Jerry Reinsdorf wants to pay $170 million to one player.
So that they can max out at a lower level than the Wizards ever got. Yeah. This is a calamity, and I hope Otto Porter can escape.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the Pelicans, I would be calling
Otto Porter or Bradley Beal right now. What do you need?
Yeah, like every single time that I get a chance to get on the phone with Ernie Grunfeld, I would be calling about Otto Porter and Bradley Beal. Otto Porter, Bradley Beal. Like, that
would require Dell Demps to actually understand what's happening with his basketball team, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Saints are playing right now.
Oh God.
Oh, yeah, just a reminder that they have the same GM of a football and a basketball team. Everything is good over there.
Dell Demps isn't the GM. It isn't like of the Saints. Mickey Loomis is the guy that like is the connector there.
We all know who really runs the show.
Yeah, like if I'm the Pelicans, I could move like a first. I could move basically anyone not named Drew Holiday or Anthony Davis from my roster for Otto Porter. I would be doing it.
It is, man, this is rough. This is really bad. Does Scotty Brooks want out?
I don't think so. I don't
Why?
know.
Why would you want to be attached to this?
I don't know.
I would want a Tyronn Lue situation where you just like, there was no way I'm fixing this. I'll take your money and leave and keep my reputation intact.
This does not seem like a good situation. We can just call that out. The Wizards do not seem to be in a situation that is positive. And the good news is they have Dwight Howard coming back, which shockingly actually will really help this group. It will help,
yeah.
Like, legitimately, Dwight will help them. The problem is, like I said earlier, their biggest problem is transition defense. And I don't think that's really gonna fix it. Like, that's like getting Dwight Howard does not help. So
no, but he can set a pick.
He can set a screen.
I did mix up Mickey Loomis and Dell Demps. I'm very upset about that with myself, so I'm going to correct myself. Mickey Loomis calls all the shots, and he covers both teams, or runs both teams. That's a mess, though he should be on the phone every day with the Wizards. Let's get off of this because I'm starting to get depressed.
Yeah. The crazy thing is that yesterday we made the statement that, how about the fact that the Timberwolves were not in our top 5 chaos teams?
They back.
And then it took all of like 16 hours for them to get back because Jimmy Butler is apparently just not going to play.
Well, this seems inevitable, right? Like,
I think so.
It was one of those things where it's like, why? What the hell's going? Obviously, what the hell's going on is the overarching statement of everything that's happening in Minnesota. But the notion that he was refusing or that he was going to play, why wasn't he holding out? Is the question. Why did he think Tibbs obviously has the incentive for him to play because he wants to win? The Timberwolves have, I guess, incentive for him not to play because, or I don't know who the Timberwolves are anymore, but as a team, if you're trying to trade him, you don't want him playing.
Under a normal circumstance, I think, under a rational thought process, which
is so far away from where we're at.
Yeah, this is funny. I was talking to Evan Daniels on, it was probably a few days ago. It was 2 days ago or 3 days ago or something. And I was like, I was trying to apply a rational thought process to an irrational marketplace with recruiting.
Totally.
And Evan was just like, he can't do that. This is silly. And this is the same place. You can't, when we're Minnesota here, you can't just ascribe rational thought to what's happening. In a rational world, sitting Jimmy Butler is the right move. Protect your asset, trade him. Don't keep playing him. The fact that he's it's just too risky. There's no upside to playing Jimmy Butler this year. There's no upside. Because
there is if you don't intend on trading him.
You're not making the Western Conference Finals with him. You're not competing at a high level with this guy.
Let's not forget,
and he's not
what
coming
this
back.
Franchise is. He's not coming back, but let's not forget what this franchise is, which is, one, a team that frankly doesn't make money unless they make the playoffs. Two, a team that hadn't made the playoffs for 13, 14, 15 years before last year. He has a lot. When Jimmy Butler says you can't win without me, he's kind of right. And this team still has an incentive to win because of their marketplace and because of the history of this franchise. They can't miss out on a year to actually make some damn money.
But here's the thing. They have an incentive to win long term. If they get nothing for Jimmy Butler because he goes down and tears his ACL next week, which, look,
okay, fair enough.
1% chance it happens, but, that's a real threat.
Yeah.
If they get nothing for him, then they're building around a pretty capped out team that is Karl Towns and Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah. And Jeff Teague.
So that's the thing. They can't just.
No, you're right. You're right.
They need to move this so that they can set themselves up to win long term.
But what? clearly none of the problems have been solved yet, and I stand by my prediction from the preseason that Tom Thibodeau is going to have to be fired before Jimmy Butler is traded. There's clearly still extreme dysfunction going on there, that they haven't gotten their house in order yet.
Yeah. I mean, like, we've belabored the Jimmy Butler thing so much. Like,
yeah, we all know what's going on. It's just like, it is kind of fascinating that this holdout wasn't immediate. I thought he was going to hold out the entire year. Then he just shows up. And, like, by the way, I don't think he's helping his trade value. I understand that in the NBA that doesn't matter because he's a top 15 player or whatever, maybe a top 10 player. And, like, it just doesn't matter. Someone's always going to line up for a player who can impact a game like he can. But, like, hot damn. Like, you want to torpedo your reputation. You're doing an excellent job here. Honestly,
I don't really think that it's hurting all that much. Like, it's an annoyance. That's
maybe what I'm shocked by. Like, why isn't this hurting more? Like, why can you act this way and get a free pass? Like, I understand that everybody around him is dysfunctional, but he's being an asshole. Like, there's no other phrasing for what he's doing. He's totally manipulating a situation at the detriment of others for his own amusement, from what it seems like to me. I don't understand how he's not being punished in some way, either by the team or by public opinion for this. I think everyone just really enjoys the chaos, and it's like, why would I want that guy on my team? I know how good of a basketball player he is, but this guy seems toxic.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. That's. I mean, listen, Tibbs has got to go. Ownership has got to make that happen, and they got to trade him. And so maybe this expedites that process, but no one comes out of this looking good. Every single entity in this saga has egg on their face.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
What are you happy about, by the way? Can we talk about a good thing?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do more on this podcast, given the fact that we just, like, shit on the Wizards and shit on...
How about the Kings? The Kings are awesome.
Can we talk about the Kings? I love the Sacramento Kings. I genuinely love the Sacramento Kings this year.
They are a lot of fun to watch.
They're actually, like, frisky and feisty and kind of good right now. They're 5-3 after winning last night. They are in the midst of, like, having Willie Cauley-Stein be really good at basketball. I don't get it.
Well, no, I think they're finally playing a system that behooves. Like, Willie Cauley-Stein can't be like a 1998 Patrick Ewing setup center. He's got to get out and run. His athleticism is his greatest strength, and he's got a little bit of refinement to his game now. He's fun to watch. He's like a more competent JaVale McGee.
He really is. Like, that's actually a really good way to put it. He's averaging 17.4 points, 9 rebounds, 2.6 assists, a steal a game. Like, he's able to get into passing lanes. He's shooting 55.6% from the field. A big thing that's helped him is that throughout his time with the Kings, I feel like he hasn't had a guy at the 4 to really stretch the floor and help him out. Nemanja Bjelica has been awesome. He's averaging 15 points on 58% from the field and 54% from 3. Look, that's almost certainly not going to keep up. But when Bjelica is on the floor, they're ridiculously good. They have a plus 12.2 net rating. When Willie is on the floor, they have a plus 14.1 net rating. That combination together has been so good this year. Like, it's crazy to me.
It all comes from the point guard to a certain extent.
It does. In this case, I do think that's true.
When you see what De'Aaron Fox has been able to do from year 1 to year 2, it's so heartwarming because this is a guy who just has an influence on games that's greater than perhaps his actual abilities, and he has tremendous prolific abilities. But this is a guy that coming out of Kentucky, going into the draft, I thought, I don't know what it is about this guy, but he's got a special it factor. And he plays with such a joy.
It's what the Kings thought.
And I was with him. I honestly thought that was a guy who could change the face of their franchise. We are very, 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 very we're microscopic levels of the big picture right now. But I'm starting to see it come through, and I'm so happy to see it because last year was such a shitty year for him. Honestly, he was getting his ass kicked on a pretty much night in, night out basis, and there weren't a lot of flashes. You thought that was the kind of year that could really break the spirit of a guy who plays with a lot of spirit. And to see him come out this year and just get so much better as a shooter, to look in full control of the court when he has the ball in his hands. A lot of this has to do Dave Yeager reinventing himself in many ways. I know he tried to speed it up in Memphis, but that didn't work out, and he got shit canned, and he didn't exactly play at a prolific pace with the Kings last year. Like, for the Kings to be running this fast and playing this style with a true stretch 4, with a center that can get up and down the court, the fact that Zach Randolph isn't even like dressing for games, is a pretty clear indication that Dave Yeager has switched things over. And you see what a system like that can do for a point guard who has the ability to affect the games in I think, a perhaps generational way in De'Aaron Fox. There's a lot of great stuff happening. And yes, there's going to be regression back to the mean, right, for a couple of shooters. They're shooting out of this world right now, and you don't think that that can continue. But they don't have bad shooters. It's not as if these guys are, like, Buddy Hield is going to come back a little bit. I don't know how much, though. Like, he was a good shooter last year. Bjelica's a good shooter. Like, these guys who are making shots, they're shooting a little bit higher, but not that much higher. Yeah, like, there's a lot of things that are sustainable here.
Buddy is 45% from three right now.
He was like 42 last year.
Yeah, I think his true talent level is like right around a 42% three-point shooter.
Especially when he gets the spacing.
Yeah,
which
that's
is going to
exactly
happen.
Right. Like, look, Iman Shumpert probably not going to shoot 48% from three. Like, we can call that out, and it's fine.
He also doesn't have that many attempts, and he's also a guy who can knock down a three-pointer a little bit more than 1/3 of the time. Like,
Iman's shooting 4 threes a game. Like, he's not.
Oh, really? Jesus Christ!
Yeah, like he's like same with Bjelica. Like, Bjelica is shooting 4 threes a game and hitting them at 54% from three. Like,
I mean, that will come down to like 43, 44%.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit further.
Yeah, I think a little bit further than that. Even.
I think that it's going to stay high. Like, I you know, there's kind of that bell curve, right? And right now, a lot of guys are at the very end of their bell curve.
They are.
In the positive sense. But, like, I think it's going to stay on the positive side of the parabola. Like, honestly. I really like the vibe around that team. Now, if a guy gets injured, a guy goes down, we got some problems.
Yeah, so like Iman Shumpert, 66% true shooting percentage. Buddy Hield, 62. I think Buddy like could have like a 59, 60 in him. So like again, I'm not like super crazy on like Buddy thinking that's good or thinking that's like impossible. Yeah, I'm not even a big
Buddy guy, and even I'm like, yeah, I mean he can definitely do
Nemanja Bjelica,
close to 60.
70% true shooting percentage.
Because the NBA's tracking, I know you're a synergy guy and stuff like that, but like the NBA's tracking data has really sucked this year. Like I don't know how many of those shots are open, but like for my eyes, like he's getting a lot of open looks, and he's a guy that I've always kind of trusted to knock down wide open looks.
Yeah, but like knock them down at like 38%, like not 54.
I think a little higher than that. Like there were a lot of shots that he would take that were end of the shot clock. Like just give it to a guy who can actually knock down a three, and I don't know. Like it's going to take a couple of more weeks for everybody, I guess, to really buy in, because it's not as if there isn't decades of terrible history here that indicate that everything's going to go wrong, and it's not as if the Kings in the Boogie era didn't have a couple of runs here that got everybody excited and then they let everybody down. But I'm seeing a lot of radical changes. I'm seeing a lot of talent that is kind of flowering together at the right time, and usually that kind of stuff doesn't happen if it's a fluke. Chemistry has a lot to do with this, and I like the chemistry on this team.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Kings. Like, look, I'm not sitting here and telling you that I think they win more than like 35 games or 37 games or something, but like, honestly, I think they probably win like 31 or 30. But
let me put it to you this
way. You know what, though? For the next 2 months, they're going to be feisty and they're going to be fun.
I think at the All-Star game, they have a chance to be in a playoff spot. I don't think it carries once you get into those final 20 games of the year and everyone starts treating them like the playoffs.
That is a take, and I am here for it.
Like, I honestly think that there is a lot of shitty teams out there, man. Like, the Western Conference does not look that strong. And, like, yes, are they the most talented team? By no stretch of the imagination are they more talented than some of these other teams. But, like, talent doesn't put it together. I think Dave's a good coach. Even if he always seemed a bit mismatched, he's come around. He's figured it out. He's being pragmatic. It is impressive to watch. I will never bet against De'Aaron Fox. Just period. I don't want to do it. Like, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of teams fighting for that 8. I'm willing to take the prop bet. I got another team I'm excited about too in the Western Conference. I think it's a team that's going to be kind of in that same range, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies.
I love what the
Grizzlies are doing.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan. They've been fine, and that is better than that.
You know what, though? They're doing what we thought they would do coming into the year. Like, they have the fourth best defense, but they have the fourth best defense. I mean, even stylistically. They have a 101.5 defensive rating. Like, that's really, really good. They're passing the ball. Mike Conley being back has really reinvigorated their offense. Marc Gasol's done a really good job of initiating from like the high post and everything. Like, what they're doing makes sense. Like, in many ways, to me, what Sacramento is doing isn't super sustainable. It makes sense because they're getting up and running, but like they're just not going to shoot this well long term. Like,
right.
Yeah, like Memphis, to me, what Memphis is doing makes sense to me, at least.
Well, and this is what I was always about. Like, they had that terrible season last year, which a good portion of that was just them tanking. And it had everything to do with injuries. Like, going into last year, people thought that the Grizzlies were, a fringe playoff team. And so they have that last year, and then everyone just starts to think, oh, this roster's terrible and everything's bad. Like, Slow-Mo's a good player, man. Like, Marc Gasol might not be the Marc Gasol from 2 or 3 years ago, but he's still damn good. Like, Mike Conley's really good. Jackson didn't play a lot last night against the Wizards, but, like,
he's been fine.
Man, he's been fine, but oh my goodness, when it flashes, it is spellbinding.
Yeah, you see it like immediately. Like he's very, very good whenever he really starts going.
As just a backup 5, what an awesome, fun weapon to have. It was very disheartening to see so few people at the Grizz game last night. Like, get on the bandwagon, just buy low on these Grizz, because I don't think they're going anywhere. I really don't. I don't know if they make it. I don't know if they get over that hump, but I think they're going to be flirting with 500 throughout the year. And if they can build up a bit of a cushion here early in the season, that is going to go a long way, especially, again, in a Western Conference where it is up for grabs after, like, the Jazz.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Dieter, several Wolves players just shook their heads as they left the arena in the morning, facing another full day of Butler drama, but I hope that you are not going to leave this podcast shaking your head. Tell the people where they can find your work.
At the San Jose Mercury News. I'm just going to spend the rest of my day, though, worrying about this Timberwolves situation, because otherwise I have to write something about the 49ers and Raiders who play Thursday night, and I have to watch it in person.
Why?
Rough. Well, because that's my job, and I get a full weekend free if I just cover that game.
Ooh, there you go.
This is it. I have been circling this weekend for a long time. Of course, it's been completely ruined by, domesticized living. But, like, it's Raiders, 49ers. Of course, in the preseason, we thought, hey, this actually might be a fairly interesting game. If nothing else, it's, local bragging rights. But they are the 2 worst teams in the NFL, in my opinion. And I think the 49ers' third-string quarterback is going to be involved. So it is the race to get Nick Bosa, who is good, but I don't know if he's worth wasting everyone's time for. It's going to be real rough. I think there will be more arrests and stadium ejections than points.
Who would you rather have, Nick Mullins or the Peterman?
Definitely Nick Mullins. Just because Nick Mullins is like a flash to my past when I was covering Conference USA football, and I actually watched Nick Mullins and thought that Nick Mullins was good. He is going to die, despite the fact that the Raiders have, I think, half of the defensive pass rush pressures of the second worst team in the NFL. I think the Lions have 120 and the Raiders have 60. So
you're talking about, Nick Mullins playing against a really, really bad Raiders team who can't defend. They are awful on defense in every way.
Listen, if you're on DraftKings,
the Peterman has to play the Bears and Khalil Mack.
Yeah, Khalil Mack's healthy now too, I bet. Yeah, that's going to be rough. Though I did see Brock Osweiler beat the Chicago Bears, so I truly believe anything is possible. At the same time, then you get Derek Carr going up against the 49ers defense, which I'm pretty sure is so injured that they're calling up practice squad players to start.
Can we just point out, Brock Osweiler
has been pretty good.
Is probably 3 tiers ahead of the Peterman in terms of quarterback level. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
The Bills signed Terrell Pryor this week.
He should play quarterback.
Should play him at quarterback.
I don't know why they don't go to a wing T.
They need to have a semblance of a system for whenever Josh Allen comes back.
Yeah, because that's something you really Here's the worst part: the Bills have 2 wins. In theory, I mean, not really anymore. But there was a moment going into that Monday night game against the Patriots that you're if they win this game because the Patriots bus gets stuck in a snowdrift somewhere or something, they have to forfeit. If they win that, they're right in the heart of things. And that defense is so good that
they'd be 3-5. I don't know if they'd be
3-5
right in the heart.
3-5's in the heart of it, man. And you would have beaten both the Patriots and the Vikings, so major credibility points. I mean, they have 2 wins. I don't know how they have 2 wins.
I don't know.
Incredible.
The craziest result of the year is them beating the Vikings, by far. I do not understand.
It doesn't make any damn sense.
And they kicked the Vikings' ass. It wasn't, and it was on the road. They kicked the Vikings' ass.
Yeah. It is, what? Like, that was a Josh Allen game. It was his first game. I think he ran for more yards than he threw for, and it was just a complete ass whooping. That defense is really good. That defense deserves better. But I would rather have Nick Mullins, who, by the way, like, wasn't even that good in preseason. So that's what I get to watch on Thursday night. But Warriors and Pelicans tonight, so I get a little bit of a palate cleanser before that pile of crap.
Shout out to the Peterman. Oh boy.
You really love that. You really like. You need to tell Bomani and Pablo firsthand how much you love that shtick.
Here's the thing. Like, look, I grew up in Pittsburgh. Like,
yeah,
there are Pitt games that I watch. The Peterman was never good.
Yeah, but he was like 6'4". Like you saw him and you're like, oh, he looks the part.
Like he was at Tennessee and had to transfer from Tennessee. Like,
who was the quarterback who beat him out for that job?
I don't remember even.
Was it Josh Dobbs?
It probably was Josh Dobbs. In fact,
who, by the way, is not a good quarterback.
Yeah, like Josh Dobbs. You know,
I never understood the Josh Dobbs thing. Never got it. But he's smart, guys. He's really smart.
Like, I don't get it. Like, he was a Derek Dooley recruit.
We're not going to talk about Derek Dooley on this podcast. Thank you.
Why aren't we talking about Derek Dooley?
Because he's Missouri's offensive coordinator.
Oh God.
It's not good. I am not watching, rooting for, or talking about Missouri football outside of the pejorative sense until they fire their coach. That is my official stand.
Okay, here's who beat out the Peterman for his job. Justin Worley beat out the Peterman to be the Tennessee quarterback, and then Josh Dobbs beat out, and then like Worley got hurt, and then Peterman came back, and then Josh Dobbs beat out the Peterman again.
Is Worley played for the Bears a little bit? He's one year practice squad 2015. Jesus Christ, mind you, Justin Worley was the Gatorade National Player of the Year in 2010 and the Tax Slayer Bowl champion in 2015. Those are his two career highlights and awards per Wikipedia.
Is that actually right?
I'm looking right at it.
How about that? Good for Justin Worley.
And the photo of Justin Worley is him being absolutely decimated by Jadeveon Clowney during a high school game in South Carolina. That is the main photo of him.
Oh my God. How was this guy the Gatorade National Player of the Year in high school when he was a 3-star quarterback?
Yeah, what? He was a 24th ranked pro-style quarterback in his class, 3 stars by rivals, and the 2010-2011 Gatorade National Player of the Year. Does he have money? Does his dad own Gatorade?
I'm confused.
He led the Trojans to a 15-0 record in the Class 4A2 state championship. He had 5,000 yards and 59 touchdowns, completing 403 of 548 attempts with only 11 interceptions. Jesus, that's too many. So that was a good year for him, 59 touchdowns, with a 407 GPA, and apparently he's Methodist.
Good for him. All right, folks, we'll be back. Shout out Justin Worley.
If you're out there, Justin, the Bills could use you.
Good for you. I don't mean to talk shit about Justin Worley. Good for him.
I'm sure he's a very nice guy. By all accounts, it seems as if he's been extremely successful post-football.
Yeah, and like he's not the Peterman. So that's
no, he went back and is working at the YMCA.
Good for him.
Jesus Christ.
Shout out.
Is that a good job?
He's making a difference in the community. That's great.
Oh, this just got super depressing. We were on such a high note after Kings and Grizzlies, and now I'm on Justin Worley. God damn it.
The Peterman is always a high note. We'll be back later this week with more. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.